Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for attending today. My name's Howard Murphy. I'm Business Development Manager for DB Computer Solutions. So today we've the good fortune to be joined by my colleague Sarah Vickers from Sicon, who'll be giving us an overview of Sicon Documents, integrating with Sage 200 and what it can do for your business. Sicon have been a chief provider of Sage 200 integrated modules for a great many years. So Sicon Documents in itself helps to enhance your document management. It helps you cut back on your paperwork. It offers the ability to scan and attach emails, documents, orders against the relative transactions in your own copy of Sage 200. There are options, of course, to drag and drop these documents or automate the process using Sicon document automation. And Sarah will explain about that later on. I've worked with Sarah for quite a bit over the last number of years, and it's very, very rare that we haven't found a full solution for a business that's had one or other requirement. So to reiterate, today's demonstration is simply an overview. So should you see an element that interests you, or if you don't see something that covers what you're looking for, I suggest dropping some questions in the chat or send me an email. We can organize a one-to-one. We can advise you then on what solution will best suit you, depending on what level you're operating with Sage 200. So look, without further ado, I'm going to bring in Sarah here. You can see her already. So
Good morning, everybody.
I'm going to ask Sarah here to take us through Sicon Documents, but just a couple of things just very quickly. As I say, we'll answer some questions towards the end of it. Feel free to send them through the course of the actual demonstration. If it's a case that you can't see the screen too well, if you're using Teams, for anybody who isn't aware, you can go to View, focus on content, go full screen. You'll see it a little better. If there's anything else that you'd like us to talk about, again, feel free, and we'll cover it where we can. Other than that, I'll hand over. Sorry, Sarah, I'm taking up all your airtime here. I'll leave you to
that's
it.
fine. Thank you, Howard. Well, good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody can now see my screen. So you should now be seeing Sage 200 in front of you. Howard, actually, is that definitely come through at your end?
So, yeah, I can see it fine
perfect.
Here.
That's lovely. So as Howard suggested, we're going to cover a couple of things for you this morning. The basic version of Documents, which allows you to scan and view any type of document directly within Sage, whether that's against the purchase ledger, purchase order processing, sales order processing, sales ledger, cash book, nominal ledger. So there's various places within Sage that you can do those attachments, and actually it can be any type of documents. You'll also see me then progress into the full-blown document automation, which is OCR, which basically eliminates the need for you to have to process a purchase ledger invoice, and that could be matching a purchase invoice against a purchase order. So it's reducing that effort of having to key that in. We can also do conversion of customer purchase orders to sales orders as well, which we'll talk on to later on. So I guess the first thing is let's cover the basic documents module. And the beauty of ours is that it directly sits inside of Sage 200. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a very, very simplistic version of this. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to get a normal invoice into Sage, and we'll show you how we can then attach that document. So there's various ways that we can attach that document. So if I come and pull through good old AB cookies, you'll see, sorry, ignore that extra pop-up. We've got so many other modules that, as Howard mentioned, you'll see there's that addition of the Add Documents button. And that's essentially what's now going to give me that capacity to be able to attach, as I said, any type of document. And in fact, you'll see I've named these. It's obviously defaulted to invoice because we're in the purchase ledger. But if you've got all sorts of different types of documents that you might also want to attach in here, you can name them, and then you can filter and find them accordingly. So we're going to attach our invoice. Now, if you've got a desktop scanner, you can pop the paper invoice in your desktop scanner, click scan, and that just instigates the scanner to work. It whizzes through the machine, and it then attaches to the transaction. The second way of doing it is I can just simply go to a network scanner, or perhaps if you've already got documents that are electronic already, I can just simply come in here and attach, and as you'll see, that will attach automatically to the transaction. And I guess that's the beauty of this. If you've got paper documents or filing cabinets, it's eliminating the need to have that storage within your office. So that's the second way. The third way is I can also, as Howard mentioned, I can also drag and drop whether this is the whole of the email or just simply the attachment. So I can literally just drag and drop that over, and that can also drop into that pane as well. Now, of course, the fourth way, as I mentioned earlier on, is that full-blown document automation, the full-blown OCR, which means I don't even have to do this. So we'll come on to that shortly for you. Now, if I come and save that, you'll see we've now got one document attached. And if we process this in the normal standard Sage way, put in our value, pop in our reference, save, that's now going to attach that to this transaction. So you'll see in a second when I come to AB Cookers' transaction inquiry screen, again, apologies, ignore all of these extra pop-ups. I've got all sorts of other things that are associated to this supplier account. Excuse me. So we're just simply going to do that, and then it's just going to simply attach. Sorry, let me use a different supplier account because I've got, there it is. It's going to give me that option to do that now. Yeah, sorry, I've got something turned on against this particular supplier account in the background. So actually let me use a different one because I've got all of that set up for construction. So let me come and find a different supplier account. Actually, let's do ALS. There we go. So quickly add that, pop in my reference, pop in my attached document, and we'll do that in exactly the same way. So there's my invoice, there's my attachment, job done. So if we now come to that supplier account, you'll see now when I come to my purchase inquiries, there we go, that against that account, we now have an attached document. So you'll see on the far right-hand corner, we just simply have that extra document count. And if I now come to the bottom of the screen, I've now got a view documents, and we can see that view documents. And there we go, there's that Ernie Swinton invoice. Now, I'm not limited to that initial screen. So if I did want to actually attach further documents, I can do. Again, it's not just in there. And in fact, if I come to the nominal ledger as an example, so if we whiz up the screen, she says trying to look for the nominal ledger, and I come to my nominal ledger list and I come to my transaction inquiry again against one of those, again, you'll see that we've got that same documents. And again, anything that we've previously processed through the purchase ledger or SOP, wherever we've attached them originally, once we've done the postings to our nominal ledger, these will then appear against that account. And again, if I click on view documents, you'll now see I've got different types of documents. So I've got my nominal documents, I've got general documents, or I can just say, show me all of them. And there we go. We've got all sorts of documents now attached in there, including, that's one that I attached earlier on, that's including the email and the attachment as well. So that's the standard documents. And we have two types of licenses, scan and view, pretty self-explanatory. That gives me the ability to scan and attach and view it afterwards, or just a simple view only. So if you've got staff within the organisation that literally just need to be able to view those documents, it's a cheaper license. Now, I'm going to come on to the full-blown document automation now, and then we'll finish off with something called document distribution, which is about outbound documentation. Now, you do need at least one of those scan and view licenses that I've just shown you in order for the full-blown document automation to work. So if you've got 3 or 4 people in the accounts department, they're going to be processing these invoices or customer sales orders, purchase orders, then they will need each a license. But the full-blown document automation is just simply a module that sits directly inside of Sage. Now, document automation, as I said, is just an easy way for us to get invoices into Sage without having to manually key it in. Now, there's a couple of ways to get those invoices from your supplier or indeed from your customers. You either set up a dedicated email address that they send them through to, and as you'll see in a moment, we can just upload them, or I can just drag them into the system. Now, all we do initially is we basically set document automation up for every single account. But as you'll see in a minute when I come back to the AB cookers, you can then decide what is it that I want to validate, because I'm sure you have some suppliers that you don't send a PO through to, utilities bill, in which case you're not going to want to do things like purchase order matching and GRN matching. So as you'll see here, you then have the ability to define at supplier level, what is it that you want the system to check for you and flag if it doesn't exist on the invoice. Now, of course, you don't have to do this for matching of invoices to POs. This could just simply be for purchase ledger invoices. So it's kind of like a child, as you'd expect. You have to teach it first, because no doubt you have suppliers that send you invoices with different formats. So all you have to do in the first instance is teach it where to look for that information. And as you'll see in a moment, I've got Ernie Swinton has got a training model, but I'm just going to delete that. So when we upload a new invoice, you'll see that it doesn't have a training model to look at. So this is where we're going to teach it where to look for that information. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my purchase invoices, my processing now of my document automation. And this is essentially the document automation screen. So if you have any staff that need to process these types of documents, this is where they're going to come. Now, this could be for invoices or credits, actually, so it can do both for you. Now, you'll see some tabs at the top, and this is just essentially going to separate out those invoices according to whether we need to do something more with them. So clearly the ready tab means exactly that. I don't need to do anything more with them. It's processed it, it's validated it. We can just post it into Sage, and we'll show you how we do that in a second. The needing attention is where it's looked at what you need us to validate, or perhaps where there's a difference in the price between the invoice and the purchase order. That's where it's going to flag it for you. If you have specified against the supplier that you want to do a GRN, and you want to make sure that inside of Sage you've matched that GRN to the purchase order, it's going to flag it in here if you haven't. If it's not validated, it's going to pop up in here. As I'll come and show you shortly, we can also lock it down with a query, which means it can't post it inside of Sage for you. Right, let's come and show you this in action. So I mentioned you can have an email address where they'll just basically email through and then you just load documents, but I'm going to show you the other way, which is essentially uploading them from a local file. So I'm going to show you two different scenarios this morning. I'm going to show you one where you are matching an invoice to a purchase order. And then I'm also going to show you a separate scenario where it's just simply a purchase ledger, but I don't have an account set up. So let's start off with the PO matching. And if you happen to have suppliers that will send you one invoice for multiple purchase orders, we can also handle that very simply as well. So there we go. Good old Ernie, we don't have a template for him, or for, I'd say for him, I'm thinking of the milkman. I'll show my age now, Howard.
No,
I don't know why it is whenever I talk about Ernie, I always want to break out into song, Ernie the milkman. Right, so she moves on very quickly. Right, here's my invoice, and you can see it's flagging for me that needs attention. So this is where I'm going to come into the training, because as we saw a second ago, there is no training model. So this is where I've got to teach it. Now, the nice thing, as you will see shortly, is once we've taught the system where to look for that information, the next time we get an invoice, as long as that supplier hasn't put the information in a different place, and that's okay actually if they have. So let's say if you've got some suppliers that are really annoying and they keep changing where the invoice number is. At the moment it's on the top right hand corner, but 2 weeks time they might decide to put it on the bottom left hand corner. That's fine. You can generate as many training templates as you like. And essentially, all that document automation will do is look at all the different places that you've taught it to look for. Okay, so we're not going to override the original template for you. So let's come and show you how easy it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in my invoice number. We'll pop in the date, and we'll pop in the purchase order number. Now, I can teach it every single line if I wanted to, but I don't have to. So I'm just going to say net value, tax value, and the total gross. And it's worthwhile mentioning, if I want to teach it the lines, I don't have to teach it every single line. We've just got a little utility then that will pick up what the rest of the lines look like. So we've given it the fields, and then all I'm going to do is say save and train. Going to create my template for me. It's going to set that up. So as you'll see, when we come and process another invoice, I'm not then having to teach it all over again. So how quick was that? That's now valid. And as I'll come and show you in a second, I can then either process it automatically, so it'll hit Sage with that attachment, or I've got a secondary option where if I want to go into Sage to make some changes maybe to the nominal ledger account, I've also got that as an option as well. Right, let's come and show you another one. So I'm going to have another invoice from good old Ernie, and we'll show you now.
Have me singing that in my head now.
You've got it now. Sorry, Howard. Yeah. That's it now. You're gonna, every single time you see me do a demo of Ernie Swinton, that's going to be it now.
Even the background singers are gonna.
Yeah, sorry. Right, there we go. How quick was that? I haven't had to do anything to it. I haven't had to train it. It's now fully valid. So absolutely, there's going to be some training up front. Obviously, there's a bit of effort that you need to put up front, but once you've done that, it's going to save you a huge amount of time moving forwards, having to keep rekeying in that information. Now, one of the other advantages of having this directly sitting inside of Sage is that I've got some simple drill downs to come and have a look at a number of different things. So this was an order. So you'll see I can drill into either amend that order, or I can view it. So this is basically going to come and take me straight into standard Sage Pop. And there we go. So if I do want to change the prices, I can do. I've also got the ability, if I come back out that screen for a second, to come in, and if there wasn't a GRN, I've got the ability to confirm the goods received from within here as well. I don't have to come out of this screen. I can do that. Or if you really do want your staff to do it, then again, you can flag it to them. The other thing that I can do is I can either come in and view or amend the supply. And again, this is standard Sage, so you'll recognize this screen. I'm not having to keep jumping in and out. And again, as you'll see, there's our standard documents button. So I can attach, again, any type of information. It could be a contract, as an example, that's relative to the supplier. All of that can be stored in that one central database for you. But as you'll see in a second, I can also drill into the transaction inquiry screen, which will then show me that attachment. So just as you saw with the standard documents, there's the invoice that we've just processed, and there's the attachment. And if we come and click on view, there we go, there's my Ernie Swinton. Now, it has locked it down with a U for unauthorized because I've got all of mine set to approve. So you can, if you want to, we're not going to show you this today, but if you want to then send this out for approval, we have a portal called Invoice Approval that can then manage that automation of those approvals. So it can automate who does it need to go to based on the value. So the more people perhaps that need to approve it, if it's over a certain value, it'll just trigger an email. They'll see that attachment either on a mobile phone or on their screen, and then they can reject it or approve it. But once it's fully approved, it'll just pop it back into here and take it off the EU for unauthorized. So it will then at that point appear in your suggested payments report. So that is something else that we can do through another application. Right, hope this is all making sense for everybody. So you'll see now at this point, I've either got the ability to process, as I said, automatically, and that will just simply go into Sage, and then it will show as complete in a second. So it's posted into Sage with my attachment complete, or as you'll see, I've also got the ability to either in here do a manual, and this is where I was talking about earlier on. If I have got multiple POs to one invoice, I can just simply select multiple orders. But what I'm also going to do is process this manually. Now, this is where it does give you the flexibility to do additional things. So again, you'll recognize this is just simply a standard Sage PO matching screen. And of course, it's going to pull through my GRNs at the bottom. But if I then want to make changes to my invoice nominal accounts, as an example, As you'll see in a second, again, I can change my nominals, I can add my nominals. If you've got our fixed assets module, I can add a fixed assets in here, whether it's a new one or to an existing one. If you've got our intercompany module, we can then create an intercompany transaction off the back of it. So again, this is where it's giving you that ability to do more things. And then all I do is save, and again, this will just simply post, there we go, completed with its attached document, stored electronically. So that's scenario number one. Scenario number two is where, as I said, we've just simply got a purchase ledger invoice with no account. So Howard, you didn't realise this, but you've sent me a couple of invoices for your services. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this invoice. And as you'll see, what we do in the background is we set up a scoring system. So in order to check that this is a valid supplier on your purchase ledger, as you'll see in a second, it's now flagging no supplier. And in fact, if I come to the account tab, there we go, no account recognized, and we have a 0 score. So you can say, well, how many things do we want to check? And if we've met the score that we've defined in the background, it's not going to flag it as long as it's a supplier account on the purchase ledger. But if we're below that score, again, that's where it will come up as needing attention, not valid. So bear with me 2 seconds. I'm just going to quickly set up Howard as a supplier account, and I'm just going to copy that information. So this is where I'm just going to come into standard Sage. We're obviously not really doing anything different just yet. So you're now official now, Howard. Great. You're on my ledger.
Finally.
You're finally on my ledger.
Yeah.
It's taken some time, but you're finally there. Right, so let's just copy that account email address. Now, I'm just going to come back into it just because I want to take off the validation around things like projects and things like GRNs and POs, because as we said, it's just simply a purchase ledger invoice. So let me just change the validations and say, don't worry, we don't need to do validation of POs and GRNs. Right, you'll see now when I come back into the document automation module, you'll see that this is now recognized as an account. So there we go, supplier account, and we've now got a score of 1, and it's telling me what it's matched. So there is that checking that if you do get an invoice from a dodgy supplier, it will flag that up for you. Okay, right, from here, we're essentially doing exactly the same as we just showed you. So all I'm going to do is come in, and we're simply going to just tell it where to look for that information. And of course, we're not having to show the purchase order because we've already specified against the supplier that we don't need to be capturing a purchase order number. So all I'm going to do, again, is pop in the invoice number, pop in the date. As I said, no different, not really doing anything different, but it could be that DB's invoices are in a completely different format to another supplier. So as I mentioned, I need to teach it. So again, save and train. Yeah, please create my training model. And again, I'm just going to quickly upload this in a second, and you'll see that once this is validated and it's created that training model, there we go. I can again just very, very quickly upload a new one. So if we now upload that other invoice that Howard hadn't got a clue that he'd sent me.
Once I get paid, I'm at COD as well. So.
Oh no, I didn't say that, Howard, sorry. Payment terms of 90 days. There we go. How quick and easy was that? So we've gone from no account set up to training it to now it's validated. Nice and simple.
Good.
Now, I mentioned a couple of other things that we could do, one of which is mark this with a query. So even though this is validated, it might not be that we want to post it into Sage. So you'll see I can literally very simply come in here, lock it down with a Q for query, pop in whatever our notes are, awaiting information. We can even assign these documents to somebody else within Sage, as long as, of course, they've got a scan and view license. Lock it down with a query, and you'll see now it's in my query folder. So if we come to my query folder, it's sitting in there. And then when I'm happy to process it, all I do is clear the query. and it will then just jump back into my main folder for me. So we can now process it in the way that you just saw me do. So that's document automation. Now, the way, obviously, if this is something that you're interested in, obviously get Howard and the team to get a quote over to you. But very simply, the way that the pricing structure works is, as I mentioned earlier on, you've got your scan and view licenses, you've got your document automation module, and then you pay a one-off cost for some document automation bundles, which you can top up. We only charge you per document, not per page, and they never run out. And the higher the bundle that you buy up front, the cheaper per document it works out at. So let's say, I don't know, you wanted to buy a 20,000 bundle today, and in 18 months' time, you've still got 5,000 left. It's not going to run out. Okay. Right, you'll be pleased to hear I'm almost finished. I'm just going to finish off now on the document distribution. So this is all part and parcel of the standard documents module. And this is essentially about if I have some documents such as supply purchase orders or customer acknowledgements, invoices, I have the ability to automate emailing that out. Now, as we know, Sage has that capacity to do exactly that. So I've just realized that we've put it in a different place. We've taken it out the main settings and I keep forgetting. Right, so these are all of the types of documents essentially that we can automate emailing out. But the couple of big differences between the way that you work with standard Sage and ours is that we can attach a couple of different things. The first of which is a header page, which, as you can see, this is just a lovely format that I've created. We've got a background page, and we can also include things like terms and conditions. And essentially, you can have obviously different types of documentation attached to each one of these. And all we do is say, who do we want it to go through to automatically? And we just simply pick up the email address of the role that you've got set up back in Sage against that account. How do we want it to go out? Do we just want it to automatically go immediately? Do we want to include our email signature? Do we just want to pop it into our drafts and then we have control of sending it out, or just open up an email window and then I'll send it out? Now, the other thing that we can do, which again is the big difference to standard Sage, is if you have stock in Sage, and if I come and show you an example of this, if I come to my stock list and go to my usual good old coffee machine, as Howard knows, it's always my go-to in demos. So you'll see we can also attach additional information, whether it's, I don't know, a photo of the item, an image, or whether it's technical information. So you'll see if I come to document distribution, I've basically said when we send out a purchase order, we also want to send the image of that coffee machine. But again, that could be something completely different, as I said, like technical specifications. You know, as long as they're always the same against that stock item, then we can automatically attach all of that. So I'm showing my age again in true Blue Peter style fashion. Here's one I prepared earlier. I need to stop doing this, dear.
Get out of the 80s.
Yes, I know. Or the 80s. I wish it was the 80s, Howard. Right. So, as I said, here's what I prepared earlier. This is an example of a dispatch note. And I've basically said, when we send out this dispatch note, send an image of the coffee machine. But that could be anything. As an example, if you've got our barcoding and courier integration, we can also send out the courier and the dispatch note and the tracking notes within the courier details as well. We can send out, let's have a look to see if there's anything else that I can show you. If it's a quote, let me see if I've got a quote in here. No, it's typical, they're all dispatch notes. If it's a quote, she says trying to find one. They're all purchase orders. You get the general idea. If I'm sending out a quote, actually that's another example of I want to buy a coffee machine and some espresso cups. But again, if it was a quote, again, we can do exactly the same. There's my quote finally. So again, it's a good old espresso machine. So you define what types of documents you want to email out and what additional information you want to send. And as I said, that's all part and parcel of the standard documents. You don't pay any more money for that.
Very good.
So we've shown you documents, which includes inbound and outbound, and we've also shown you document automation, and I've mentioned the full invoice approval module as well that we can take a look at on another day if you'd like.
Very good. The other thing, of course, is just as you mentioned earlier on, there is a facility for importing POs to convert to SOs, which is
We have
something that
indeed,
I'm
yes. Thank
very
you for the
interested in.
reminder.
Yeah.
It works in exactly the same way. So essentially, if I come out of that screen for a second and we come back into document automation, you'll see I then have this option to process purchase orders. So I won't bore you by going through the same process because essentially it's just teaching it. So all I'm doing here is I'm uploading a customer purchase order. And again, it's just going to look at, again, in this scenario, I don't have a training model for AB cookers. So it's going to flag up that they need attention. And then essentially exactly the same. I just teach it where to look for the information. So once you know how to do the invoices, it's exactly the same for credit notes and it's exactly the same for customer purchase orders. It's just I'm going into a different area. But I can, one of the things, sorry, I didn't mention earlier on, when you're in the invoices section, I can filter by supplier, but I can also filter by the sender's name or email address. In this case, I can filter by the customer or I can filter by the document type. So obviously, if I'm in the invoice one, that could be credit notes or purchase ledger invoices.
But it definitely it cuts out an awful lot of time. I mean, if you've received purchase orders with a long line of product lines that are coming in, the ability to be able to convert that to a sales order and go through that sales order process then relatively quickly cuts out all of that effort of manually entering it in. It's not so bad when you get the couple of lines on a purchase order, but if you're getting a couple of lines or a couple of pages full of lines, I mean, it's worth its weight in gold, really.
Yeah, and as I said, I mean, I had one customer that I did a demo for the other day, and they said it's an absolute nightmare trying to match the invoice because the supplier only sends one invoice through. Then they're trying to tally up which lines link to which POs. As I said, we can do all of that in here. So again, that's a huge time saving as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously, the more invoices, the more credit notes, the more time saving that's going to be involved. And again, similarly, if you've got customer purchase orders, then that's an even bigger time saving for you. So it definitely justifies the costs.
Okay, all right. I think you've been fairly comprehensive getting through all of that, Sarah, in such a short space of time. It's like you've done it before or something.
No.
Yeah. First time round. Yeah, that's so. Yeah. So if anybody has any queries before we wrap up, please send them over to us and we'll answer them as best we can. Just to mention, just while we're waiting on that, that there are a bunch of other solutions that both Sarah and myself can provide, chiefly around production or warehousing or anything around stock. There's also cash flow as well, which is something that we've covered some short videos on. In fact, on DB's YouTube channel, we actually have a number of short videos that we've done similar to what we've done here today with Sarah in conjunction with Sicon for some of their other modules also. But absolutely feel free if it's a case you want further elaboration on it or you want some costs on any of the things that you've seen today or any of the other videos that we posted on the actual website, feel free to drop me a mail on my side here. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And you can catch me on howard@dbcomp.ie. So if it's a case that there's anything we haven't covered here, as I said at the start, please let me know. If something's niggling away at you or somebody's asking you about something, or if you're finding too much manual effort, even if it's reporting, we generally have solutions around pretty much most things to do with Sage 200 or otherwise. So I don't seem to have any questions here at the moment, Sarah. So look, many thanks for your time. If we'll still be answering them. So even if we get some stuff sent to us after the actual webinar itself, I'll forward them over to you and we'll respond to everybody in due time. But look, many thanks for your time this morning. And yeah, thanks everybody for attending and thank you very much and goodbye.
All right. Have a good day, everybody. Take care. Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.